Hey, so tonight we're going to talk about something pretty fascinating, life as a medieval noble in England. And trust me, by the time we're done, you're going to be real grateful for your modern bed and indoor plumbing. Oh, and if you're enjoying these stories, I'd really appreciate a like or subscribe. Super curious where you're all listening from, so drop a comment with your location and what time it is there. Always blows my mind how people are falling asleep to this all over the world. Alright, find that cozy spot, take a nice slow breath and just let your body sink into whatever you're lying on. We're heading back to medieval England and trust me, you're going to be real grateful for that mattress by the time we're done. So congratulations, you just woke up in the upper chamber of a Norman stone keep. It's early morning, maybe around dawn, and you're lying on a large wooden four-poster bed with ropes woven across the frame to support your mattress. Not a spring in sight. The mattress beneath you is actually 3 layers. A scratchy straw-filled sack at the bottom, a slightly softer wool-stuffed middle layer, and the top one, the luxury part, filled with goose feathers. Only nobles get that top layer, so enjoy it. Heavy wool curtains hang from the bed frame, keeping in whatever warmth your body generated overnight. It's cold, really cold. The stone walls of the keep hold the chill like a grudge. Your breath forms little clouds in the air. The shutters are closed tight against the night air, but drafts still find their way through the ill-fitting wooden slats. You're not alone in this bed. That would be weird by medieval standards. Privacy isn't really a thing yet. If you're the lord or lady of this castle, your spouse is beside you, and possibly a child or two. If you're lucky, maybe just a trusted servant sleeping on a pallet near the foot of your bed, ready to jump up and serve at a moment's notice. The smell is complex. There's the smoky scent from last night's fire, now just embers in the stone fireplace. There's the distinct aroma of unwashed bodies. Bathing isn't a daily activity here, maybe once a week if you're particularly hygiene-minded for the 12th century. There's also the sweet smell of rushes on the floor mixed with dried herbs that were scattered among them to ward off fleas and mask less pleasant odours. From outside, you hear the first stirrings of the castle coming to life. A rooster crows, dogs bark, the distant clang of pots from the kitchen building in the castle yard. Servants are already up and working. The castle is like a small village, and it takes dozens of people to keep it running. You stretch and yawn, getting comfortable as your muscles slowly wake up. That's it. Nice and easy. Now, what exactly is a noble anyway? Well, basically, the nobility were the people who controlled power in medieval society, especially in the countryside. Think of them as the military upper class after the Norman conquest of 1066, when William the Conqueror came over from Normandy and took England. The Norman nobles were essentially an occupying force. These guys came with William, fought for him, and got rewarded with huge tracts of land. In exchange for this land, nobles had responsibilities. They had to provide military service to the king when called upon, maintain order in their territories, and uphold the king's law. The benefit they got in return? Taxes from all those peasants working the land and a whole lot of power. There was a hierarchy even within the nobility. At the top sat the royals, kings and queens. Just below them were the great magnates of the realm, dukes and duchesses, then earls or counts in much of Europe, and countesses, then lesser nobles like barons and knights. Consider the De Vere family, who we'll be talking about tonight. They were Earls of Oxford, one of the most important noble families in medieval England. Their home was at Heedingham Castle in Essex, which still stands today, and it's a perfect example of the classic Norman stone keep that dominated the English landscape after the conquest. The first De Vere, Aubrey, came over with William the Conqueror. He appears in the Domesday Book of 1086, a massive survey of all land in England ordered by William. Aubrey was known as Aubrey the Chamberlain, meaning he was closely connected to the king's household. That position near the king was incredibly valuable. It meant he had the monarch's ear, and soon enough the Daires family had lands in 9 different counties. You swing your legs over the side of the bed, wincing as your bare feet touch the cold floor. A yawn escapes, your body still wanting more rest, but there's no sleeping in when you're a medieval noble. Even though you have servants to do the physical labour, you have responsibilities. You need to oversee your estates, dispense justice, manage your household, and maintain your military obligations. A servant appears as if by magic, carrying a basin of water for you to wash your face and hands. It's lukewarm at best, no hot running water here. You splash some on your face, shivering slightly. That's it, settle into the sensation. The cool water actually feels refreshing now, waking your senses. As a noble, your day will be structured around meals, prayers, and duties. The first meal, breakfast, will be something simple, perhaps bread, ale, and maybe some cold meat left over from yesterday. The main meal comes at midday, and then a lighter supper in the evening. Let's talk about the castle itself. A castle isn't just one building, it's a complex of structures surrounded by defensive walls. The heart of many Norman castles was the keep, a massive stone tower like the one you're in now. Headingham's keep stands about 90 feet high, with walls that are 10 feet thick at the base. It was designed to impress as much as to defend. These Norman keeps followed what's called a motte and bailey design. The motte is a raised mound of earth, and the bailey is the enclosed courtyard. The whole thing would be surrounded by a defensive wall, often with a moat or ditch for added protection. Getting into the castle meant crossing a drawbridge and passing through a heavily guarded gatehouse. You stand at the window, pushing open the wooden shutters to look out over your domain. The morning sun catches on the dew-covered fields in the distance. Smoke rises from peasant cottages scattered across the landscape. As far as you can see, this land is under your control. The people who work it owe you taxes, service, and obedience. It's a heady feeling, that power. Your body relaxes as you take in the morning air, shoulders dropping slightly. A deep breath fills your lungs. That's it, just noticing the sensations as your body gradually wakes up. But this power comes with constant danger. Even in peaceful times, nobles have enemies, other nobles who covet their lands, peasants who resent their authority, political rivals at court. That's why the Lord's chamber where you stand is high up in the keep, protected by thick stone walls and guards. That's why the stairs leading up to this floor are narrow and winding, designed so that attackers have to fight their way up single file, while defenders have the advantage of height. Castle architecture was carefully designed with both defence and display in mind. Take the windows, for example. Down at the lower levels of the keep, they're just narrow slits, letting in a little light but too small for anyone to climb through. As you go higher up the keep, where the noble family lives, the windows get larger and more ornate. Up here, it's safe enough to have bigger windows, and they showcase the family's wealth and refinement. The Norman arches in this castle are particularly distinctive. They have zigzag patterns called chevrons carved into them, a signature of English Norman architecture. Each decorative element is a statement of wealth. Stone carving was expensive, requiring skilled masons. Having elaborate decoration means you can afford the best craftsmen. You hear footsteps on the stairs outside your chamber, a servant coming to help you dress. Getting dressed as a noble isn't a simple matter of throwing on some clothes. Your clothing is a statement of your status, and it's complicated enough that you need help with it. For a nobleman, you'll wear a linen shirt next to your skin, then a wool tunic that reaches to your knees, cinched with a belt. Over that goes a surcoat or mantle in cooler weather. Your legs are covered with woolen hose that tie to your belt. The quality of the wool, the dyes used to colour it, the embroidery or fur trim, all of these details announce your status to everyone who sees you. If you're a noblewoman, you'll wear a linen chemise next to your skin, then a long woolen gown that reaches the floor with trailing sleeves. Your hair would be covered with a veil, perhaps held in place with a circlet if you're of high rank. Again, the richness of the materials and decorations displays your wealth and position. Getting more comfortable now? Good. Feel the weight of your body settling deeper into your bed as we continue our journey through medieval noble life. After dressing, you descend the winding stone staircase to the main hall. This room is the heart of castle life. It's a huge space taking up the entire second floor of the keep. This is where the lord conducts business, where the household eats, where guests are entertained. The Great Hall at Heedingham would have looked very different in the medieval period than it does today. The stone walls would have been plastered and painted in bright colours and patterns. Medieval people loved colour and decoration. Tapestries would hang on the walls, adding both beauty and much-needed insulation against the cold stone. A massive fireplace dominates one wall, with a fire blazing to take the chill off the air. Trestle tables run the length of the room, with benches for most people, and perhaps a few chairs with backs for the most important. A raised dais at one end holds the high table, where the lord and his family sit. As a noble, your meals are far better than what peasants eat. You have access to a variety of meats, not just the salt pork and occasional chicken that commoners might have, but fresh beef, venison from your deer parks, fish from your ponds, and game birds. Your bread is made from fine white wheat flour, not the coarse dark rye that peasants eat. Your food is heavily seasoned with imported spices, pepper, cinnamon, ginger, nutmeg. These aren't just for flavour, they're status symbols. Spices come from distant lands and cost a fortune. Using them lavishly shows everyone how wealthy and connected you are. Your cooks might use these spices to disguise the taste of meat that's not entirely fresh. Refrigeration isn't a thing yet, and food preservation is limited to smoking, salting, and pickling. Wine flows freely at your table, imported from France at great expense. Peasants drink ale, but you can afford the good stuff. The wine might be spiced and sweetened with honey, a drink called hippocras that's popular among the nobility. You settle into your chair at the high table, feeling the solid wood supporting your back. A servant places a trencher before you, a thick slice of stale bread that serves as your plate. Another fills your cup with wine. Your muscles relax a bit more as you prepare to break your fast. Nice and easy, that's it. The hall isn't just for eating, it's where you conduct the business of your estate. As a lord, one of your main responsibilities is dispensing justice. Peasants from your lands bring their disputes to you for settlement. You might hold a regular court session in this very hall, sitting in judgment over cases ranging from theft to land disputes to assault. The power of a lord in medieval England was extensive. You had the right to hold courts, collect taxes, and in some cases even carry out executions. With a high title like Earl of Oxford, you'd also have political responsibilities at the royal court, advising the king and helping to govern the realm. But all this power came with obligations. Chief among them was military service. Knights and nobles were the professional warriors of medieval society. From childhood, noble boys trained in the arts of war, riding, swordsmanship, lance work, archery. By the time they reached adulthood, they were expected to be capable fighters, ready to serve their king in battle. This martial culture shaped the values of the nobility. The ideal knight was brave, loyal, and skilled in combat. Over time, these values evolved into the code of chivalry, which also emphasized courtesy, generosity, and protecting the weak, at least in theory. But the reality of medieval warfare was brutal and pragmatic. Knights weren't just romantic figures on horseback, they were the tanks of their day, heavily armoured shock troops who could break enemy formations. And while knights might show respect to other knights on the battlefield, this wasn't just about honour. There was money involved. Capturing an enemy knight meant you could ransom him back to his family for a hefty sum. You rise from the table, your meal finished. The day stretches before you, filled with duties and privileges. As you move toward the door, servants bow respectfully. Guards stand straighter as you pass. Everyone in this castle depends on you, and you depend on them. A complex web of obligations that defines feudal society. Outside in the castle yard, the day is in full swing. Horses neigh in the stables, the blacksmith's hammer rings against his anvil, the smell of fresh bread wafts from the bakehouse, chickens scatter as you pass, dogs kept for both hunting and security lope alongside you. The castle isn't just a home, it's the administrative centre of your lands. From here, you oversee farms, villages, forests, and perhaps even towns. The wealth that flows from these properties supports your lifestyle and funds your military obligations to the king. You feel the warmth of the sun on your face as you cross the yard, muscles loosening with each step. Your breathing naturally slows, settling deeper into a comfortable rhythm. That's it, just noticing the sensations as you continue to relax. Beyond the castle walls lie your deer parks, carefully managed hunting preserves stocked with game for your pleasure. Hunting isn't just recreation for medieval nobles, it's a way to practice military skills, to display wealth and to secure fresh meat for the table. Deer hunting in particular is a privilege reserved for the nobility. Poaching the king's deer is a serious crime, sometimes punishable by death. The Daires family had both a great park and a little park near Heedingham Castle. These weren't wild forests but managed landscapes with areas of woodland interspersed with clearings where deer could graze. Hunting lodges provided shelter during extended hunts. For a medieval earl, a day's hunting with hawks or hounds was both a pleasure and a statement of status. As the sun climbs higher, you return to the keep for the main business of the day. Perhaps you're meeting with your steward to discuss estate matters, hearing petitions from tenants, or receiving guests. If you're the lord, you might be practicing military skills in the yard with other knights. If you're the lady, you're likely overseeing the domestic affairs of the castle, supervising servants, managing supplies, and perhaps engaging in fine needlework, a valued skill for noblewomen. Religion is woven into the fabric of noble life. The castle has at least one chapel, and probably two. The Daires, like many noble families, endowed religious houses to pray for their souls. The family founded Colne Priory in Essex, where monks would offer prayers for the Daires in perpetuity, a spiritual insurance policy for a family whose power was often maintained through violence. The day passes in a rhythm of duties, meals, and prayers. As evening approaches, the household gathers again in the great hall for the main meal. This is a more elaborate affair than breakfast, with multiple courses and perhaps entertainment, music from a minstrel or tales from a storyteller. After the meal, as darkness falls, the castle begins to quiet. Candles and rushlights are expensive, so most activities cease with the daylight. The household retires early by modern standards, perhaps around 8 or 9 o'clock. You climb the winding stairs back to your chamber, your body heavy with the day's activities. A servant has already been up to prepare the room, banking the fire to provide some warmth through the night. The bed curtains are drawn back, ready for you to enter this nest of relative comfort in a cold, hard world. As you settle under the heavy woolen blankets and fur coverlets, you notice how your body sinks into the mattress. The feathers in the top layer conform to your shape, cradling you. Your muscles begin to release the tensions of the day. That's it, nice and easy. Your breathing slows naturally. The weight of the covers feels reassuring, protective. Outside, you hear the night watch making their rounds, their footsteps steady on the stone walls. Torches flicker, casting long shadows. Inside the thick stone walls of the keep, you're as safe as anyone can be in this uncertain world. The sounds of the castle fade as sleep approaches. A dog barks in the distance. Wind whistles around the battlements. The fire crackles softly in the hearth. Your eyelids grow heavy but not quite ready for sleep. Your thoughts drift to the complex web of relationships that define your place in this medieval world, your obligations to those above you, the responsibilities you bear to those below. You shift slightly, finding that perfect spot as you consider the strange paradox of noble life, the immense privilege and the constant pressure, the wealth and the danger, the power and the vulnerability. You take another slow breath, sinking deeper into that comfortable spot as we continue. The nobles of medieval England didn't just live differently from common people, they were almost a separate breed. From birth, noble children were raised with expectations that shaped everything about them. They moved differently, spoke differently, even thought differently from the peasants who worked their lands. Military training started young for noble boys, sometimes as early as 7 years old. A boy might be sent to another noble household as a page, learning to serve at table and care for horses while beginning basic combat training. By 14 or so, he'd become a squire, directly serving a knight and training more intensively in the arts of war. If all went well, he'd be knighted in his late teens or early 20s. Meanwhile, noble girls were trained to run large households and make advantageous marriages. They learned needlework, household management, basic medical care, music, and dancing. Some also learned to read, especially by the later medieval period. The ideal noblewoman was pious, modest, fertile, and skilled at managing both servants and estates when her husband was away, which was often. Your muscles relax as you consider how different your modern life is. No pressure to master swordplay or arrange political marriages for your children. That tension in your shoulders eases a bit more. That's it. Let it go. Marriage for medieval nobles wasn't primarily about love. It was about alliance building and property. Noble families carefully arranged marriages to expand their lands, secure political support, or make peace with rivals. The Daires family, like other noble houses, used marriage strategically to enhance their position. One way they rose so high was by marrying into the extended royal family. Aubrey de Vere's connection to the sister of William the Conqueror helped secure the family's place near the centre of power. Children were valuable assets in this marriage market. A nobleman might betroth his daughter when she was still a child, using the promise of her future marriage to cement an alliance. Boys weren't exempt either. They too could be betrothed young, though they generally married later than girls. Despite these calculated arrangements, genuine affection did sometimes develop between noble spouses. Medieval literature is full of romantic love stories, suggesting that even in arranged marriages, people hoped for emotional connection. The relationship between nobles and the church was complex and mutually beneficial. The church offered nobles spiritual services, education for their sons, and administrative expertise. In return, nobles provided the church with land, money, and protection. Many nobles founded monasteries or priories, endowing them with land and income to pray for the family's souls. Colne Priory, founded by the Daires, is a perfect example. The monks there would pray daily for the souls of the de Vere family, living and dead. When Aubrey de Vere II was killed by a London mob in 1141, his body was returned to Colne Priory for burial. His soul would be prayed for in perpetuity by the monks there, a spiritual insurance policy that eased concerns about the violence inherent in noble life. You notice your breathing has naturally slowed, in and out, nice and easy. Your body feels heavier, more connected to the bed beneath you. That's it, just letting those muscles unwind. Religion wasn't just about the afterlife, it structured daily life as well. The medieval day was marked by prayer times. Noble households would observe at least some of the canonical hours, with prayers at dawn, prime, midday, sext, and evening, vespers. The calendar was organised around religious feasts and fasts. During Lent, even wealthy nobles were supposed to abstain from meat, eggs, and dairy products, though they could still enjoy expensive fish dishes. The nobility also had special relationships with parish churches on their lands. They might have the right to appoint priests, a valuable source of patronage, and often had special seating in the church itself. Some had private chapels in their castles where family chaplains would conduct services. Inside the great hall of a castle like Heedingham, the political power of the noble family was on full display. When local people came before the Lord for justice or to pay their rents, they entered an environment carefully designed to awe them. The hall might be hung with tapestry showing heroic or biblical scenes. The Lord would sit in an elevated position, perhaps wearing fine clothes and jewellery that cost more than a peasant would earn in a lifetime. The message was clear. This family is different. They rule because they are set apart. This difference was reinforced in countless ways, from the food they ate to the language they spoke. After the Norman conquest, the nobility spoke French for generations, while common people spoke English. Law courts operated in French or Latin. This linguistic divide created another barrier between nobles and those they ruled. Your body feels warmer now, more relaxed. Each breath comes easier than the last. That's it, just letting everything settle. Castles like Heedingham weren't just defensive structures, they were centres of local government. The Lord Steward would collect rents and taxes here. Records would be kept of who owed what service. Justice would be dispensed in the Lord's courts. For most people living on a noble's lands, the castle represented both protection and control. The relationship between lords and peasants was hierarchical, but also somewhat reciprocal. Peasants owed their lord rent, labour service, and various dues. In return, the lord was supposed to provide protection, justice, and leadership. This system, known as manorialism, was the economic foundation of noble power throughout the medieval period. How did nobles spend their leisure time? Hunting was perhaps the most important noble pastime, combining recreation with practical training for war. Hawking, hunting with trained birds of prey, was particularly prestigious. Different ranks of nobility were entitled to hunt with different birds. Only a king could hunt with a gerfalcon, while lesser nobles used sparrowhawks or merlins. Medieval nobles also enjoyed feasts, music, dancing, storytelling, and various games. Chess was popular among the educated elite, as were dice games and an early form of backgammon called tables. Tournaments provided both entertainment and military training, with knights competing in jousts and mock battles. For noble women, embroidery was both a practical skill and a leisure activity. The famous Bayeux tapestry, actually an embroidery, depicts the Norman conquest and was likely created by noble women. Music, poetry, and dancing were also important female accomplishments. Your shoulders sink a little deeper into the mattress as you imagine these medieval pastimes. So different from our modern entertainments, yet serving similar purposes: to connect, to compete, to create, to pass the time pleasantly. Your breathing continues its steady rhythm, in and out. That's it. Education varied widely among the medieval nobility. By the 12th century, some nobles were quite literate, though primarily in French rather than English. Others relied on clerks and chaplains to handle reading and writing. Education typically focused on practical skills needed for lordship. land management, basic law, military training, rather than abstract learning. Sons of great nobles might study with private tutors in cathedral schools or even at universities as these institutions developed. Oxford University was already established by the late 12th century. Daughters typically received education at home or in nunneries, focusing on religious instruction, household management, and the social graces needed to function in noble society. The De Vere family produced some notably educated members. The third Earl of Oxford served as a royal justice, suggesting he had some legal training. Later, earls patronised scholars and collected books. By the Renaissance, the De Veres were known for their learning as well as their military prowess. A comfortable sigh escapes as you sink deeper into the bed. Your mind drifts with these historical details, engaged but not overly stimulated. That's right, just the right level of interest to keep your thoughts from racing. Noble life wasn't all privilege and power. It came with significant dangers too. War was an ever-present risk. Many nobles died in battle or from wounds and disease contracted during campaigns. Political missteps could lead to exile, imprisonment, or execution. Even in peacetime, accidents during hunting or tournaments claimed noble lives. The story of the De Vere family illustrates these dangers. Aubrey de Vere II was killed during the civil war known as the Anarchy, when King Stephen and Empress Matilda fought for the English throne. Later, De Veres faced exile and execution as they navigated the perilous politics of medieval England. Health risks affected nobles just as they did commoners, though wealthy families had better nutrition and could afford physicians. Still, medieval medicine was limited, and epidemics like the Black Death killed nobles alongside peasants. Childbirth was particularly dangerous for women of all classes. Many noblewomen died young after multiple pregnancies, despite having better care than commoner women. You notice the weight of your body against the bed, heavy and comfortable. Each breath feels a little deeper, a little slower. That's good, just noticing those sensations. Beyond their individual castles, great nobles like the De Vere played important roles in national politics. As Earls of Oxford, they were peers of the realm, entitled to attend Parliament and advise the king. They might serve as royal officials, sheriffs, justices, or members of the royal household. Some became close confidants of the monarch, wielding enormous influence. This political role was both an opportunity and a risk. Proximity to the king brought rewards, lands, titles, marriages, offices, but also dangers. Royal favour was fickle, and nobles who backed the wrong side in succession disputes or power struggles often paid with their lives. The medieval period saw several baronial rebellions against unpopular kings. The most famous resulted in Magna Carta in 1215, when the barons forced King John to accept limits on royal power. These conflicts remind us that noble power wasn't just exercised over peasants, it also served as a check on the monarchy itself. For families like the De Vere, maintaining position required careful political manoeuvring across generations. They had to remain loyal to the crown while protecting their own interests, forge alliances with other noble families, manage their estates effectively, and produce male heirs to continue the lineage. You shift slightly, finding an even more comfortable position. Your muscles feel loose, relaxed. That heavy, peaceful feeling spreads through your limbs. That's it, just like that. Let's step back into Heedingham Castle and imagine a great feast in the main hall. It's the Earl's birthday, and he's invited neighbouring nobles, important clergy, and royal officials. This isn't just a celebration, it's a political event, a chance to display wealth, forge alliances, and impress rivals. The hall is transformed. Trestle tables line the walls covered with fine linen cloths. Servants have been preparing for days. In the kitchen building outside, cooks have been roasting meats, baking pastries, and preparing elaborate dishes designed to showcase the family's wealth. Guests arrive throughout the day, the most important ones accompanied by their own servants and guards. They're greeted according to their rank, with the highest status visitors received by the Earl himself. Others are welcomed by household officials. Everyone is acutely aware of the social hierarchy reflected in these greetings. As the feast begins, guests are seated according to rank, with the most honoured nearest to the high table where the Earl sits. The food arrives in carefully choreographed courses, first fish dishes, then meat, then sweet courses and cheese. Servants present the most spectacular dishes with theatrical flourishes, perhaps a peacock redressed in its feathers or a pie that releases live birds when cut open. Between courses there's entertainment, music, acrobats, or a jester. The Earl might commission a poet to recite verses praising his lineage and deeds. Wine flows freely, served in silver or glass cups for the high table, pottery or wood for lesser guests. Your breathing has found a comfortable, steady rhythm now, in and out, nice and easy. Your mind follows along with the story while your body continues to relax. The feast isn't just about food and entertainment. Important business is conducted amid the celebration. The Earl might quietly discuss a marriage alliance with a neighbouring lord, or a church official might seek support for a new building project. Political news is exchanged, disputes are resolved, friendships are strengthened. For a noble family like the Daires, such feasts were an essential part of maintaining their position. They demonstrated the family's prosperity and generosity, reinforced social bonds, and provided opportunities for the subtle negotiations that kept medieval society functioning. As the evening progresses, some guests grow rowdy with wine, others engage in earnest conversations about theology or politics. The women might withdraw to a separate chamber for their own conversations, though this wasn't always the case in the medieval period. Eventually, the most important guests are shown to chambers prepared for them, while lesser visitors sleep in the hall itself. The next morning, everyone rises to attend Mass in the castle chapel. Religious observance is woven through noble life, providing both spiritual comfort and another opportunity to display status. The Earl might have his own private pew elevated above the congregation. The family's donations to the church are prominently displayed. After Mass, the guests depart gradually, again according to rank. The most important might stay for several days, hunting in the Earl's forests or continuing private discussions. The least important leave first, having been granted a brief glimpse into the rarefied world of high nobility. Your muscles feel heavier now, pleasantly weighted against the mattress. That comfortable, drowsy feeling spreads through your body. Your breathing continues its slow, steady pace. That's it. Just like that. We've touched on many aspects of noble life, but perhaps the most important was lineage. Medieval nobles were obsessed with family history and succession. The Daires traced their ancestry back to the Norman conquest and beyond, claiming connections to legendary figures. Family names, coats of arms, and mottos all emphasized continuity across generations. This concern with lineage wasn't just vanity, it was practical. In a society where land and titles passed by inheritance, establishing your pedigree was essential. Disputes over inheritance could lead to lengthy legal battles or even armed conflict. For great families like the Daires, ensuring a clear succession was crucial to maintaining their position. This focus on lineage created tremendous pressure to produce legitimate male heirs. Nobles who failed to sire sons faced the extinction of their family line. Women were valued primarily as mothers of the next generation, though they could also bring land and connections through marriage. Despite this patrilineal system, some noblewomen wielded considerable power. As widows, they might control vast estates. As mothers of young heirs, they could serve as regents. Even within marriage, noble women often managed households and estates while their husbands were away at war or court. Your body feels warm and comfortable now. Settle deeply into your bed. Each breath comes naturally, effortlessly. Your thoughts drift with the story, neither too engaged nor too distant. Just right. The medieval castle wasn't just a home for the noble family. It housed a large household of servants, officials, and retainers. At the top of this hierarchy was the steward, who oversaw the entire estate. Below him were specialised officials like the chamberlain, responsible for the Lord's chamber and personal finances, the marshal, who managed the horses and military aspects, and the butler, in charge of drink. Female servants were overseen by the lady of the castle, often with a head woman servant similar to a housekeeper. The kitchen had its own hierarchy, with the head cook commanding numerous assistants. There were bakers, brewers, gardeners, grooms, laundresses, and dozens of other specialised workers. Beyond the household itself, the castle was the centre of a network of manors and villages. Each manor would have its own reeve or bailiff who reported to the castle steward. Rents and produce flowed from these outlying properties to support the noble household. This complex social and economic system revolved around the noble family at its centre. Their status wasn't just about luxury, it was about organising society, directing resources and maintaining order. For all its inequalities, the feudal system provided structure in a world that could quickly descend into chaos without it. You shift slightly, finding that perfect comfortable position. Your muscles feel pleasantly heavy, relaxed. Your breathing continues its steady rhythm as you listen, gently engaged but not overstimulated. That's it, nice and easy. The stone walls of Heedingham Castle have witnessed nearly 1,000 years of history. The De Vere family held the earldom of Oxford for over 5 centuries, from the Norman conquest until the male line failed in 1703. They survived wars, rebellions, plagues, and political upheavals. Their story is a testament to the resilience and adaptability required to maintain noble status across generations. Today, Heedingham Castle still stands, its massive Norman keep largely unchanged since the 12th century. Visitors can climb the same winding stairs that the De Veres climbed, look out from the same windows, and imagine the medieval world that we've been exploring. As you lie there, comfortable and relaxed, picture yourself back in that medieval bed, curtains drawn against the night chill, the fire banking low in the hearth. Outside, the castle sleeps, though guards still patrol the walls. In the great hall below, servants curl up near the main fireplace, seeking warmth through the night. Your breathing has found that perfect restful rhythm. Your body feels heavy and comfortable, muscles relaxed and at ease. That's it, just like that. The weight of the blankets feels reassuring, like the thick stone walls of the castle keeping the world at bay. Tomorrow would bring more duties, more responsibilities. The eternal cycle of noble life would continue, managing estates, dispensing justice, maintaining alliances, preserving the family position. But for now, in the quiet darkness, even a medieval earl or countess could find a moment of peace. Your eyes grow a bit heavier, not quite ready for sleep, but enjoying this restful state. Your mind drifts between thoughts of stone keeps and brilliant tapestries, of hunting parks and solemn chapels. The medieval world feels both foreign and somehow familiar. different in its details, but similar in its human concerns. You take another slow, easy breath, settling deeper into comfort. Your muscles continue to relax, tension melting away. That's it, just like that. As we continue our journey through the medieval noble world, your body continues to find that perfect state of relaxation. The weight of centuries seems to press you gently into the mattress, comfortable and secure as you imagine the torchlit chambers of Heedingham's stone keep where generations of nobles have slept before you. The Norman castle represented more than just a defensive structure. It was a physical manifestation of the new order that came with the conquest. Before 1066, Anglo-Saxon nobles lived in wooden halls, impressive buildings, but nothing like the stone fortresses the Normans introduced. The castle was a statement. We are here to stay. We have the resources to build in stone, and we have the military might to hold what we've taken. For English peasants, the appearance of these stone keeps across the landscape was a constant reminder of their subjugation. The castle dominated the countryside visually, just as the Norman lord dominated it politically and economically. You couldn't look at the horizon without seeing that stark reminder of who was in charge now. Your body feels so comfortable now, settling deeper into the mattress with each breath. That's it. The weight of your limbs feels pleasant, grounding. Your breathing finds its natural, easy rhythm. The Normans didn't just bring new architecture, they brought a new conception of nobility. Anglo-Saxon nobility had been somewhat more fluid, with greater possibility for movement between social classes. The Norman system was more rigid, with a clearer distinction between those who fought and the nobility, those who prayed, the clergy, and those who worked, the peasantry. This three-part division of society became the standard model throughout medieval Europe. Nobles justified their privileged position by claiming they protected everyone else. In return for this protection, they received wealth produced by peasant labour. The clergy provided spiritual services and education, also supported by the surplus generated by peasant work. Of course, reality was always messier than this neat model. Towns and cities created spaces where merchants and craftspeople didn't fit easily into the three-part scheme. Some peasants became wealthy enough to challenge the economic position of minor nobles. Some clergymen came from noble families and lived quite nobly themselves, but the basic framework shaped how medieval people understood their society. A comfortable sigh escapes as you sink deeper into relaxation. Your muscles feel loose, warm, gently supported by the surface beneath you. That's it, just noticing those pleasant sensations. Let's talk a bit more about the daily routines of noble life. The day would begin early with the household rising around dawn or shortly after. A noble might begin the day with brief prayers, followed by a light breakfast, perhaps bread, ale, and some preserved meat or fish. Morning hours were often devoted to business matters, meeting with the steward about estate affairs, hearing petitions or cases from tenants, dictating letters to a clerk or chaplain. A noblewoman might oversee household tasks, check supplies, and direct servants during this time. Midday brought the main meal of the day, served in the great hall. This would be the most substantial meal, with multiple dishes of meat, fish, bread and vegetables depending on the season. Wine or ale would accompany the food. The noble family would eat at the high table, with household members at lower tables according to their status. After the midday meal, there might be time for recreation, perhaps hunting if the weather was good, or indoor pursuits like chess, music, or conversation if it wasn't. Religious observances punctuated the day, with prayers at set hours following the monastic tradition, though observed less strictly in secular households. The evening meal would be lighter than midday dinner, perhaps served in a more private chamber rather than the great hall. As darkness fell, activities would wind down. Candles and rushlights were expensive, so there was incentive to follow the natural cycle of daylight. the household might gather to hear stories, music, or news before retiring to bed. Your breathing continues its gentle rhythm, each breath a little deeper than the last. Your body feels heavy in the best possible way, comfortably settled. That's it. Just like that. Seasonal changes affected noble life significantly. Winter brought challenges, keeping the castle warm, managing food supplies, dealing with reduced travel as roads became impassable. The household might contract somewhat, with some servants returning to their villages until spring. Winter was also a time for indoor activities, long feasts in the Great Hall, storytelling around the fire, planning for the year ahead. Christmas was a major celebration lasting 12 days with special foods, gifts and entertainment. For nobles, this was an opportunity to display generosity to dependents and reinforce social bonds. Spring brought renewed activity, planting on the estate, building projects resuming, preparation for military campaigns if war was brewing. Summer was the busiest season, with harvests to oversee, travel easier on dry roads and longer daylight hours for work and recreation. Fall focused on food preservation and preparation for winter, smoking meats, brewing ale, gathering firewood. Through all these seasonal changes, the rhythm of religious observance continued. Church festivals marked the passing year. Easter, Pentecost, Saints' Days, Michaelmas, Advent, Christmas, and many more. These celebrations combined spiritual observance with practical breaks from routine, giving structure to the medieval year. Your muscles relax even more deeply now, releasing any remaining tension. That comfortable heaviness spreads through your limbs. Your breathing is slow and steady, nice and easy. The relationship between noble families was complex. Part competition, part cooperation. Marriages created alliances between houses. Shared interests in keeping peasants in check created common cause. But competition for royal favour, land and titles could create fierce rivalries. These rivalries sometimes erupted into private wars, especially during periods of weak central authority. Even in peacetime, nobles competed through displays of wealth and status, building grander castles, hosting more lavish feasts, wearing more expensive clothes, maintaining larger retinues of followers. For the De Vere family, maintaining their position required careful navigation of these relationships. As Earls of Oxford, they ranked among the greatest nobles in England, but this high status made them both valuable allies and potential threats to the crown. They had to demonstrate loyalty while protecting their own interests, forge beneficial connections with other noble houses, and avoid making powerful enemies. This delicate balance was particularly challenging during times of political instability. During the Wars of the Roses in the 15th century, John de Vere, the 13th Earl of Oxford, supported the Lancastrian side. When the Yorkists gained the throne, he was attainted for treason, his lands confiscated. He later recovered his position when Henry VII, a Lancastrian, took the throne in 1485. Your body feels wonderfully heavy now, pleasantly sinking into the surface beneath you. Your breathing has found that perfect, restful rhythm. That's it, just like that. Noble women played crucial roles in medieval society, though their options were more limited than men's. A noble woman's primary value was in the marriage alliance she could create and the heirs she could produce. But within these constraints, many women exercised significant influence. As chatelaines, female castellans, noblewomen often managed huge households and estates, especially when their husbands were away at war or court. This involved overseeing dozens or even hundreds of servants, managing supplies and finances, and sometimes defending the castle in times of danger. Women were expected to bring a dowry to marriage, money, land, or goods that technically became their husband's property but strengthened the family's position. They also expected to receive a dower in return, property set aside for their support if they survived their husbands. Widows of wealthy nobles could be very powerful figures, controlling vast estates and arranging marriages for their children. Some exceptional women transcended the usual limitations. Eleanor of Aquitaine, for instance, was first Queen of France and then Queen of England, ruling England as regent when her son Richard the Lionheart was on crusade. But even for less exceptional women, the role of noble wife and mother carried significant responsibility and influence. You take another slow, deep breath, feeling the air fill your lungs and then release. Your body continues to relax more deeply with each breath. That's good. Just noticing those sensations of comfort and heaviness. Children in noble households experienced a very different upbringing from their peasant counterparts. From an early age, they were raised with an acute awareness of their status and the responsibilities it entailed. They learned the complex codes of behavior expected of nobility, how to speak, move, eat, and interact with others according to strict social rules. Education varied by gender. Boys learned reading, often in Latin and French as well as English, basic mathematics, history, especially of their own family, religious instruction, and of course military skills. Girls learned household management, needlework, basic medical care, music, dancing, and sometimes reading and writing as well. By modern standards, childhood ended early. Noble boys might be sent to serve in another lord's household as early as 7 years old. Girls might be betrothed in childhood and married in their early teens. These practices reflected the high stakes of noble lineages and alliances. Too important to leave to the whims of youthful preference. Despite these pressures, evidence suggests that medieval parents loved their children deeply. Letters between noble family members show affection and concern. The high childhood mortality rate made each surviving child precious, and while marriages were arranged for political advantage, parents generally tried to find suitable, even compatible matches for their children when possible. You settle deeper into your comfortable position, feeling supported and secure. Your muscles continue to release any remaining tension. That's it. Just like that. Every breath brings more relaxation. The material culture of nobility, their clothing, possessions, and surroundings, was designed to display their status. Fine wool, silk, and linen clothing, often in bright colours achieved with expensive dyes, set nobles apart visually. Sumptuary laws sometimes restricted certain fabrics, colours, or styles to particular ranks, making clothing a literal badge of status. Inside the castle, tapestries served both practical and display functions, insulating cold stone walls while showcasing scenes of hunting, battle, or biblical stories. Furniture was relatively sparse by modern standards, but what existed was often beautifully crafted. A nobleman might own a carved chair or bed, chests for storage, and perhaps a table with trestles that could be set up for meals and taken down to free space. Plate and cutlery revealed status too. While ordinary people ate from wooden trenchers with just a knife and their fingers, nobles might use silver plates and cups. By the later medieval period, they began to use more specialised utensils, though the fork didn't become common until after the medieval era. Jewellery and personal accessories were important status markers. Rings, brooches, chains and coronets displayed wealth and rank. Even practical items like belt buckles or sword hilts could be works of art, made from precious metals and set with gems. Your body feels so comfortable now, perfectly at ease. Your breathing is slow and deep. That pleasant heaviness continues to spread through your limbs. That's nice. For all their wealth and power, medieval nobles faced health challenges similar to everyone else in their society. Medical knowledge was limited, combining ancient Greek and Roman theories with herbal remedies, religious practices, and superstition. The concept of the four humours, blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile, dominated medical thinking, with illness attributed to imbalances that needed correction through diet, bloodletting, or herbal preparations. Nobles had advantages in healthcare, better nutrition, cleaner living conditions, and access to the best physicians of the day. Castle life, with its stone walls and separate kitchen buildings, offered some protection from the fires and diseases that ravaged crowded towns. Still, many common illnesses had no effective treatment, and even minor injuries could become fatal if infected. Childbirth remained particularly dangerous for women of all classes. Noble women might have midwives and physicians attending them, but without antiseptics or modern medical knowledge, many died in childbirth or from subsequent infections. This reality contributed to the medieval view of motherhood as both essential and potentially martyrdom. Even with these health challenges, some nobles lived to impressive ages for the time. While average life expectancy was shortened by high infant and child mortality, those who survived to adulthood and avoided war, accident, and epidemic disease might live into their 60s or even 70s. Your breathing continues its gentle rhythm, each breath bringing more comfort, more relaxation. Your body feels wonderfully heavy, peacefully at rest. That's it. Just right. Let's consider how nobles entertained themselves beyond the hunting and feasting we've already discussed. Music was an important part of noble life. A wealthy household might employ musicians permanently or hire them for special occasions. Instruments included harps, lutes, recorders, shawms, an early oboe, drums, and early stringed instruments like the rebec. Poetry and storytelling provided both entertainment and cultural education. The chansons de geste, songs of heroic deeds, celebrated legendary and historical figures. Romances told tales of love and adventure. Some nobles patronized poets and chroniclers to compose works celebrating their family's achievements. Games ranged from physical contests like wrestling or archery to board games like chess and tables, an early form of backgammon. Dice games were popular despite periodic attempts by authorities to restrict gambling. Children played with toys similar to those of less privileged kids. Balls, hoops, tops, and dolls, though a noble child's doll might be more elaborately dressed. Tournaments evolved from practical military training into spectacular social events. Early tournaments were essentially mock battles fought over large areas with few rules, often resulting in serious injuries or deaths. Over time, they became more formalized and theatrical, with jousting as a centerpiece and elaborate pageantry surrounding the contests. Your muscles continue to relax, tension melting away with each breath. That comfortable heaviness deepens, spreading through your body. So comfortable, so relaxed, that's it. The Norman nobles who built Heedingham and other great castles were conquerors, and their relationship with the conquered Anglo-Saxon population was initially antagonistic. Over time, however, these distinctions blurred. Norman nobles married into Anglo-Saxon families. The French language gradually gave way to English, though French terms remained in legal and courtly vocabulary. By the time of the 100 Years' War in the 14th and 15th centuries, the descendants of those Norman conquerors saw themselves as English, fighting against the French. The nobility had become a hybrid culture, preserving elements of their Norman heritage while adapting to the land they ruled. This cultural evolution is visible in castle architecture. Early Norman keeps like Headingham were primarily military structures, imposing, defensible, relatively austere. Later medieval castles incorporated more comfortable living arrangements, larger windows, elaborate decorative elements, and eventually features that prioritised comfort over defence. The Daires family exemplifies this evolution. The first Aubrey was a Norman knight who came with the Conqueror. By the time of the 13th Earl of Oxford, John de Vere, the family was thoroughly English, fighting for the English cause against France and playing a key role in internal English politics. Your body feels wonderfully relaxed now, every muscle at ease. Your breathing is deep and regular. That's good. Just enjoying those pleasant sensations of comfort and heaviness. Nobles derived their income primarily from land, specifically from the people who worked that land. Peasants paid rent either in money, produce, or labour service. They also paid various fees and fines for using the lord's mill to grind grain, for permission to marry, for inheritance, for breaking local bylaws. These payments might seem exploitative from a modern perspective, but they existed within a system of mutual obligation. The lord provided protection, justice, and organisation. In times of famine, a good lord might reduce rents or distribute food from his stores. In war, the castle offered refuge. This didn't make the system fair or equal, but it wasn't simple exploitation either. Beyond agricultural income, nobles might profit from other resources on their lands: timber from forests, fish from rivers or ponds, game from parks and chases. Some owned urban properties that generated rent, others had rights to collect tolls on bridges or markets. Mining rights could be valuable if the land contained coal, tin, lead, or other minerals. Royal service offered another path to wealth. Offices like sheriff or royal justice came with fees and opportunities for profit, sometimes corrupt. Military service during wartime could bring ransoms and plunder. Diplomatic missions might be rewarded with gifts or pensions from the crown. Your eyelids might feel a bit heavier now, your body completely at ease. Your breathing continues its slow, steady rhythm. In and out. Nice and easy. That's it. As we've seen, castle design evolved over the medieval period, responding to changes in warfare, culture, and noble lifestyles. Heedingham represents the classic Norman keep, a massive stone tower designed primarily for defence, with thick walls, limited entrances, and strategic features like the spiral staircase that gave defenders an advantage. The keep wasn't the only defensive element, though. It stood within a bailey, an enclosed courtyard surrounded by a wooden palisade, later replaced by a stone curtain wall. Outside, this was a ditch or moat, sometimes filled with water. The entire complex sat on a raised mound, the motte, creating multiple layers of defence that an attacker would have to overcome. By the 13th century, castle design became more sophisticated. Concentric castles featured multiple rings of walls, each higher than the one outside it, allowing defenders to fire over their own outer walls. Gatehouses became more elaborate, with drawbridges, portcullises, murder holes for dropping things on attackers, and other defensive features. Later still, as gunpowder weapons developed, castle design had to adapt again. Walls became lower and thicker to resist cannon fire. Eventually, the defensive role of castles diminished, and they evolved into country houses that preserved some castle-like elements, more for show than function. Your body continues to sink deeper into comfort, every muscle relaxed. Your breathing is slow and regular. The weight of your limbs feels pleasant, grounding. That's it. Just like that. Religion permeated every aspect of medieval life, and nobility had special religious roles and privileges. A great lord might have the right to appoint priests to churches on his lands, the right of advowson. Noble families often had private chapels in their castles and estates, served by chaplains who were essentially household officials as well as priests. Monastic foundations provided another connection between nobility and the church. Many nobles founded or endowed monasteries, priories, and nunneries. These relationships were symbiotic. The religious house received land and income, while the noble family gained spiritual benefits and practical advantages like education for their children or care for widowed or unmarried female relatives. Pilgrimages offered nobles both religious merit and opportunities for travel and adventure. A journey to Canterbury, Compostela, Rome, or even Jerusalem combined piety with what we might now call tourism. Noble pilgrims travelled in relative comfort with servants and guards, staying in the best accommodations available along the route. The Crusades represented the ultimate fusion of noble military culture with religious fervour, fighting against Muslim forces in the Holy Land or pagan peoples in Eastern Europe. Crusading knights believed they were serving God while practising their warrior skills. Many noble families had crusading traditions, with sons following fathers and grandfathers to wars sanctified by the church. You take another slow, easy breath, feeling the air fill your lungs and then release. Every part of your body feels heavy and comfortable. That's good, just enjoying that peaceful sensation. The Black Death, arriving in England in 1348, transformed medieval society, estimated to have killed between 1/3 and 1/2 of the population. This catastrophic plague changed the relationship between nobles and peasants. With fewer workers available, peasants could demand better conditions and higher wages. Some nobles responded with legislation trying to freeze wages and restrict peasant mobility, creating tensions that contributed to the peasants' revolt of 1381. The revolt began as a protest against poll taxes, but quickly became an attack on the entire system of lordship. Rebels targeted manorial records, symbols of their subjugation, and killed some unpopular nobles and officials. The 14-year-old King Richard II helped suppress the revolt, but its legacy lingered in both peasant consciousness and noble fears. Wars also shaped noble life throughout the medieval period. The Norman conquest itself was just the beginning. Civil wars like the Anarchy, 1135-1153, and the Wars of the Roses, 1455 to 1487, forced nobles to choose sides, with their lands and lives at stake. The 100 Years' War against France, 1337 to 1453, provided opportunities for military glory and profit, but also drained resources and lives. For a family like the Daires, navigating these conflicts required political skill and sometimes luck. Backing the wrong side could mean attainder, loss of titles and lands, or even execution. Yet military service also offered paths to advancement, new lands, ransoms from captured enemies, royal favour and rewards. Your body feels so peaceful now, deeply relaxed. Your breathing has found that perfect rhythm, slow and steady. Your muscles feel pleasantly heavy, completely at ease. That's it, just like that. The end of the medieval period saw significant changes for the nobility. The Wars of the Roses decimated many old families. The Tudor dynasty, established when Henry VII took the throne in 1485, worked to curtail noble power, restricting private armies and bringing more regions under direct royal control. Economic changes also affected noble status. The rise of towns and trade created wealthy merchants who sometimes purchased land and married into noble families. The shift from a primarily agrarian economy to one with significant commercial and later industrial elements gradually reduced the nobility's economic dominance. Yet traditional noble families like the Daires continued to hold significant power and influence. They adapted to changing times, engaging in new economic activities, adjusting to new political realities, and maintaining their position at the top of society through strategic marriages and careful management of their estates. The de Vere line finally came to an end in 1703 when Aubrey de Vere, the 20th Earl of Oxford, died without a male heir. The earldom became extinct after more than 600 years, one of the longest-running noble titles in English history. Heedingham Castle passed through female lines to other families, but the direct male de Vere lineage was over. Your eyes might feel a bit heavier now, your body completely at ease. Each breath comes naturally, effortlessly. You're in that perfect state of relaxation, comfortable and content. That's it, just right. Today, Heedingham Castle still stands as a testament to the power and ambition of the Norman nobility. Visitors can climb the same stairs, look out from the same windows, and imagine the lives that unfolded within those massive stone walls. The great Norman arch in the banqueting hall, nearly 30 feet across, continues to impress with its engineering and beauty. The castle is now privately owned, hosting weddings, concerts and medieval reenactments. Guests can stay in a Georgian house built on the property, enjoying a level of comfort the original builders could hardly have imagined. The deer parks that once provided hunting for the earls are long gone, but the landscape retains its beauty. What would Aubrey de Vere, that Norman knight who came with the Conqueror, think of his castle today? Would he recognise the world we've built on the foundations laid in his time, the political systems, social structures and cultural values of the medieval period have transformed over centuries, yet echoes remain in our laws, our language, our architecture and our imaginations? As you lie there, pleasantly relaxed, your breathing slow and steady, picture once more that medieval noble in their four-poster bed, curtains drawn against the night chill. Outside, the castle sleeps. Guards patrol the walls. In the great hall, servants curl up near the dying fire. Your body feels wonderfully heavy now, comfortably sinking into the surface beneath you. Your muscles are completely relaxed, tension melting away with each breath. That's it, just noticing those pleasant sensations as you shift slightly, finding that perfect spot where you can rest most comfortably as we continue our journey through medieval noble life. The relationship between castle and countryside was symbiotic yet unequal. Those massive stone walls weren't just for defence, they were administrative centres that organised the surrounding lands. From Heedingham Castle, the de Vere family oversaw dozens of manors, each with its own local officials who answered to the Earl's steward. The view from Heedingham's battlements would have shown a landscape thoroughly shaped by human activity. Unlike today's wooded Essex countryside, medieval land was heavily cultivated. Fields stretched to the horizon, divided into strips farmed by different peasant families. Woodlands were carefully managed resources, not wild forests. Villages clustered around parish churches, their inhabitants bound by obligation to the castle that dominated their skyline. Your breathing finds a comfortable, steady rhythm, in and out, nice and easy. Your body feels pleasantly heavy, muscles relaxed and at ease. That's it, just noticing those sensations. What about the day-to-day hazards of medieval noble life? Despite their relative comfort and privilege, nobles faced numerous dangers. Fire was perhaps the most common threat. Castles contained many fire sources, hearths for heating and cooking, candles and rushlights for illumination. Timber structures within the castle complex could easily catch fire, and even stone buildings had wooden floors, roof beams and furnishings that would burn. Disease was another constant concern. While nobles had better nutrition and cleaner living conditions than peasants, medical knowledge was limited. The Black Death killed nobles alongside commoners. Other diseases, smallpox, tuberculosis, influenza, dysentery, claimed lives across all social classes. The crowded conditions of castle life, with many people living in close quarters, could facilitate the spread of contagion. Accidents claimed noble lives too. Falls from horses during hunting or combat, weapons training gone wrong, structural collapses in buildings, all posed risks. Travel was particularly dangerous, with poor roads, bandits, and unpredictable weather. Even a minor injury could become fatal if infection set in, given the limited medical options available. Political dangers were perhaps the most dramatic threats. A noble who backed the wrong side in a succession dispute or civil war might lose everything: lands, titles, and even their life. The higher one rose in the nobility, the greater these risks became. Great earls, like the Daires, operated in the dangerous world of royal politics, where a king's favour could shift suddenly and with deadly consequences. Your muscles feel looser now, pleasantly relaxed. The weight of your body against the surface beneath you feels grounding, secure. That's good, just letting that comfortable heaviness spread. Let's explore the education of medieval nobles in more detail. While formal schooling as we understand it today was rare, noble children received training appropriate to their future roles. Boys learned a combination of military skills, administrative knowledge, and cultural accomplishments. Military training included horsemanship, weapons use, and understanding tactics. A nobleman needed to know how to lead men in battle, how to assess terrain for strategic advantage, and how to maintain discipline among troops. These skills were taught primarily through practice rather than theory, with boys beginning simple exercises in childhood and advancing to more complex training as they grew. Administrative knowledge encompassed estate management, basic legal concepts, and understanding the web of feudal obligations. A lord needed to know how to extract maximum productivity from his lands without pushing his tenants to rebellion, how to judge cases brought to his court, and how to navigate his own obligations to higher lords or the king. Cultural accomplishments varied by time period and individual family values. By the High Middle Ages, many nobles were literate, often in multiple languages: Latin for church matters, French for court and legal affairs, and increasingly English for everyday use. Music, poetry, history, particularly family history, and religious knowledge rounded out the education of well-born young men. A slow, easy breath fills your lungs and then releases. Your body feels wonderfully heavy and comfortable. Your muscles are completely relaxed. That's it, just like that. For noble girls, education focused on household management, religious instruction, and the social graces needed to function in noble society. Running a medieval castle or manor house was a complex task requiring knowledge of food storage and preparation, textile production, basic medical care, accounting, and personnel management. The lady of the castle was essentially the CEO of a large organisation, responsible for everything from making sure there was enough winter food stored to managing dozens of servants. Girls also learned needlework, music, dancing, and often reading. Literacy rates among noble women increased throughout the medieval period. Some women were highly educated by the standards of their time. Christine de Pizan, writing in the early 15th century, was an educated noblewoman who became one of the first professional female authors in Europe, producing works on history, politics, and women's place in society. Both boys and girls received religious education, learning prayers, biblical stories, and church doctrine. This wasn't just about personal salvation. In a society where religion permeated every aspect of life, understanding Christianity was essential to functioning in the noble world. Your eyelids might feel a bit heavier now, your body completely at ease. Your breathing continues its slow, steady rhythm. In and out, nice and easy. That's it. The material culture of medieval nobility, their clothing, possessions and surroundings revealed much about their status and values. Textiles were particularly important status markers. Fine wool, linen, silk and later cotton were woven into garments that signalled rank through their quality, colour and decoration. Colour itself was a luxury. Vibrant, fast dyes, those that wouldn't quickly fade or wash out, were expensive. Purple dye, made from Mediterranean sea snails, was so costly that it became associated with royalty. Rich reds from Kermes insects, blues from woad or indigo, and bright yellows from weld or saffron all signalled wealth when used for clothing. The cut and style of garments evolved throughout the medieval period, but always distinguished nobles from commoners. By the 14th century, fashion had become quite elaborate, with tight-fitting garments for men showing off the body, and women's dresses featuring fitted bodices and flowing skirts. Sumptuary laws sometimes attempted to restrict certain styles, fabrics, or decorations to particular social ranks, making clothing a literal badge of status. Your body feels so comfortable now, every muscle relaxed. That pleasant heaviness spreads through your limbs. Your breathing is deep and regular. That's nice. Jewellery served both decorative and practical purposes. Rings, brooches, chains and coronets displayed wealth while also securing clothing in an era before buttons were common. Precious metals and gemstones adorned the nobility, with different stones sometimes believed to have protective or healing properties beyond their monetary value. Inside the castle, furnishings were relatively sparse by modern standards, but what existed was often beautifully crafted. A nobleman might own a carved chair with a high back, chests for storage, and tables with trestles that could be set up for meals and taken down to free space. Beds were significant investments, with the four-poster bed emerging in the later medieval period, providing both warmth and privacy through its curtains. Wall coverings served both practical and aesthetic purposes. Tapestries insulated cold stone walls while depicting scenes from history, religion, or mythology. Painted cloths offered a less expensive alternative. In the Great Hall, heraldic devices, coats of arms and badges proclaimed the family's lineage and connections. Tableware reflected status too. While ordinary people ate from wooden trenchers, nobles might use pewter or even silver plates and cups for special occasions. The salt cellar on the high table was often an elaborate silver piece, its placement marking the division between higher and lower status diners. Your breathing continues its gentle rhythm, each breath bringing more comfort, more relaxation. Your body feels wonderfully heavy, peacefully at rest. That's it, just right. Let's explore the concept of chivalry, which shaped noble male behaviour throughout the medieval period. The word comes from the French chevalier, meaning horseman or knight, reflecting the centrality of mounted combat to noble identity. But chivalry evolved into a complex code of conduct encompassing military, religious and social aspects. Militarily, chivalry emphasised courage, loyalty and skill in combat. A chivalrous knight protected his lord, fought honourably and maintained his equipment and training at the highest standards. The tournament provided a stage for displaying these virtues in peacetime, with knights competing for honour and reputation as much as for prizes. Religiously, the ideal knight served God as well as his earthly lord. He defended the church, protected the weak, especially widows and orphans, and might undertake pilgrimages or join crusades. The ceremony of knighthood itself included religious elements, with the candidate often spending a night in prayer before being dubbed a knight. Of course, reality often fell short of these ideals. Knights who behaved chivalrously on the tournament field might brutalise peasants on their estates. The same nobles who patronised romantic poetry might arrange marriages for purely political and economic advantages. Yet the ideal persisted, shaping how nobility thought about themselves and their role in society. A comfortable sigh escapes as you sink deeper into relaxation. Your muscles feel loose, warm, gently supported by the surface beneath you. That's it. Just noticing those pleasant sensations. The medieval noble's diet differed significantly from that of common people, reflecting both greater resources and the desire to display status through consumption. Meat featured prominently on noble tables with variety and freshness that peasants rarely experienced. While commoners might occasionally eat salted pork or poultry they raised themselves, nobles enjoyed fresh beef, venison, boar, rabbit, and numerous bird species from pheasant to peacock. Fish was important too, especially on fast days when the church prohibited meat. Nobles maintained fish ponds on their estates to ensure fresh fish was available. They could also afford preserved fish imported from coastal regions. Salted herring, stockfish, dried cod, and smoked eel appeared on noble tables far from the sea. Bread remained a staple across all social classes, but nobles ate fine white bread made from wheat, while peasants typically had darker, coarser bread made from rye or barley mixed with other grains. The noble's bread often served as a trencher, a plate of sorts during meals, absorbing sauces and juices. After the meal, these sauce-soaked trenchers might be given to the poor or to dogs. Vegetables and fruits appeared on noble tables, though contemporary medical theory considered raw fruits and vegetables potentially dangerous. Cooked vegetables, preserves, and dried fruits were safer options. Nobles grew fruits and vegetables in castle gardens with different varieties than we might recognise today, smaller, less sweet, and more seasonal. Your body feels so comfortable now, perfectly at ease. Your breathing is slow and regular. The weight of your limbs feels pleasant, grounding. That's it, just like that. Spices distinguished noble cuisine from peasant fare more than any other element. Pepper, cinnamon, ginger, cloves, nutmeg, and many others featured prominently in noble kitchens. These came from distant lands, Southeast Asia, India, the Middle East, travelling thousands of miles by ship and caravan before reaching European markets. Their cost was prohibitive for all but the wealthy. Spices weren't just for flavour, they demonstrated the nobles' connections to global trade networks and ability to afford luxury imports. They also helped preserve meat in an era before refrigeration and could disguise the taste of food that was past its prime. Medieval noble cuisine often combined sweet and savoury flavours in ways that might seem strange to modern palates. Meat pies with dried fruits and honey alongside pepper and ginger, for instance. Wine was the preferred drink of nobility, with ale and beer considered lower status beverages, though still consumed, especially in regions where grapes didn't grow well. By the later medieval period, nobles might import wines from France, Spain, or the Rhineland, with different varieties prized for different qualities. Wine was often spiced and sweetened with honey to create a drink called hippocras, especially popular at feasts and celebrations. The organisation of a noble kitchen was complex, with specialised staff for different tasks. The head cook oversaw numerous assistants, each with specific responsibilities: baking, roasting, sauce-making, pastry. For large feasts, temporary staff might be hired to handle the increased workload. The logistics of feeding dozens or even hundreds of people required careful planning and coordination. Your muscles relax even more deeply now, releasing any remaining tension. That comfortable heaviness spreads through your limbs. Your breathing is slow and steady, nice and easy. Medieval noble families maintained their position not just through military power and land ownership, but through their ability to project an image of authority and legitimacy. Heraldry, the system of hereditary symbols displayed on shields, banners, and seals, played a crucial role in this image-making. A coat of arms identified a noble lineage visually, allowing instant recognition on battlefield or tournament ground. The specific elements of the design, colours, divisions, charges, images were regulated by heralds who ensured each design remained unique. Over time, elements might be added to reflect marriages, honours, or claims to territory. The Daires family coat of arms featured a quarterly design of red and gold with a silver five-pointed star or mullet in the first quarter. This design appeared on everything from battle shields to seals on legal documents, from tapestries in the Great Hall to the livery, uniform clothing worn by household servants and retainers. Heraldry wasn't just decorative, it had practical functions. In battle, when faces were hidden by helmets, heraldic devices on shields and surcoats allowed identification of friends and foes. In civilian life, seals bearing heraldic designs authenticated documents in an era when few people could write their names, let alone read complex legal text. Beyond heraldry, nobles projected power through architecture, clothing, entourage, and ceremony. The size of one's household, the richness of one's attire, the height of one's castle walls, all communicated status in a society where visual symbols often mattered more than written statements. Your body feels wonderfully heavy now, pleasantly sinking into the surface beneath you. Your breathing has found that perfect, restful rhythm. So comfortable, so relaxed. That's it. Noble households were complex organizations requiring careful management. At the top of the household hierarchy stood the steward, who oversaw the entire operation on behalf of the lord. Below him were specialized officials like the chamberlain, responsible for the lord's chamber and personal finances, the marshal, who managed the horses and military aspects, and the butler, in charge of drink. Female servants were typically overseen by the lady of the castle, often with a head woman servant similar to a housekeeper. The kitchen had its own hierarchy, with the head cook commanding numerous assistants. There were bakers, brewers, gardeners, grooms, laundresses, and dozens of other specialized workers. The size of a noble household varied with the rank and wealth of the family. A minor knight might have just a handful of servants, while a great earl like the Daires would maintain a household of dozens or even hundreds. The Countess of Oxford's household accounts from the 15th century show payments to numerous servants of various ranks, from gentlewomen companions to scullery maids and stable boys. Household staff weren't just employees in the modern sense. They often had feudal relationships with their lord, receiving protection and sometimes education or advancement opportunities in exchange for service. Young nobles might serve in the households of greater lords as part of their education and to form connections. Less exalted servants might remain with one family for generations, their children following them into service. Your eyes might feel a bit heavier now, your body completely at ease. Each breath comes naturally, effortlessly. You're in that perfect state of relaxation, comfortable and content. That's it, just right. The rhythms of the agricultural year shaped life even for nobles. While they didn't work the fields themselves, they oversaw the process and depended on its success for their income. Spring brought ploughing and planting, with the lord's officials ensuring that peasants fulfilled their labour obligations on the domain, the lord's own land. Summer saw haymaking and maintenance work, while autumn was dominated by the grain harvest, the most critical time of the agricultural year. After harvest came a complex accounting process. Peasants owed portions of their crops to the lord as rent. These had to be collected, recorded, and stored properly. Some would feed the castle household, some would be sold at market, and some would be reserved as seed for the following year. The lords' officials, reeves, bailiffs and stewards, managed this process, keeping detailed records that many medieval manors still preserve in their archives. Winter brought its own activities, slaughtering animals that couldn't be fed through the lean months, repairing tools and buildings, processing food for storage. Throughout the year, religious festivals provided breaks in the routine. Christmas, Easter, Pentecost, Saints' Days, and harvest celebrations all had their own customs and observances. For nobles, these agricultural rhythms translated into patterns of income and expenditure. Rents might be collected at traditional quarter days, Lady Day, March 25, Midsummer, June 24th, Michaelmas, September 29th, and Christmas, December 25th. Major household purchases and building projects were often timed to follow these payment dates when the lord's coffers were fullest. Your body feels so peaceful now, deeply relaxed. Your breathing has found that perfect rhythm, slow and steady. Your muscles feel pleasantly heavy, completely at ease. That's it, just like that. The medieval period wasn't static. It saw significant changes that affected noble life. The 12th and 13th centuries brought what historians call the commercial revolution, with expanding trade networks, growth of towns, and increased use of money rather than direct exchange of goods or services. For nobles, this meant more opportunities to convert agricultural surplus into cash and to purchase luxury goods from distant regions. The 14th century brought crisis, the Great Famine of 1315-1317, followed by the Black Death in 1348-1349, which may have killed up to half of Europe's population. These disasters transformed the relationship between nobles and peasants. With fewer workers available, peasants could demand better conditions and higher wages. Some nobles responded with repressive measures, contributing to tensions that erupted in the Peasants' Revolt of 1381 and similar uprisings across Europe. The 15th century saw the Wars of the Roses in England, a series of dynastic conflicts that devastated many noble families. The de Vere, as Earls of Oxford, were deeply involved in these struggles. John de Vere, the 13th Earl, supported the Lancastrian side. When the Yorkists gained power, he was attainted for treason and his lands confiscated. He later recovered his position when Henry VII, a Lancastrian, took the throne in 1485, but many noble families weren't so fortunate. Throughout these changes, the ideal of nobility remained powerful, the concept that some people were born to rule, that nobility was in the blood, that the three-part division of society, those who fight, those who pray, those who work, was natural and divinely ordained. Even as the practical reality of noble life evolved, this ideological framework persisted. You take another slow, easy breath, feeling the air fill your lungs and then release. Every part of your body feels heavy and comfortable. That's good. Just enjoying that peaceful sensation. The legacy of medieval nobility continues to fascinate us today. Their castles still dot the European landscape. Their heraldic symbols appear on tourist souvenirs and family crests. Their stories inspire films, novels, and television series. What explains this enduring appeal? Perhaps it's the combination of luxury and danger that characterized noble life, the fine clothes and sumptuous feasts alongside the constant threat of war, disease, and political downfall. Perhaps it's the visual spectacle, the castles, tournaments, and pageantry that seem so distant from our modern world. Or perhaps it's the clear social hierarchy, so different from our ostensibly meritocratic society, yet with echoes that persist in modern wealth inequality. Whatever the reason, places like Heedingham Castle continue to draw visitors seeking connection with this distant past. Standing in the great hall where the de Vere once feasted, climbing the winding stairs to chambers where they slept, looking out from battlements where they surveyed their domains. These experiences collapse the centuries, creating an almost physical link to medieval noble life. The De Vere family line eventually came to an end, like many great medieval lineages. Aubrey de Vere, the 20th Earl of Oxford, died without a male heir in 1703, and the title became extinct. Heedingham Castle passed through female lines to other families, but the direct male de Vere lineage was over after more than 600 years, one of the longest-running noble titles in English history. Your body feels wonderfully relaxed now, every muscle at ease. Your breathing is deep and regular. That pleasant heaviness continues to spread through your limbs. That's nice. Today, Heedingham Castle remains privately owned, hosting weddings, concerts and medieval reenactments. Visitors can climb the same stairs, look out from the same windows, and imagine the lives that unfolded within those massive stone walls. The great Norman arch in the banqueting hall, nearly 30 feet across, continues to impress with its engineering and beauty. What would Aubrey de Vere, that Norman knight who came with the Conqueror, think of his castle today? Would he recognise the world we've built on the foundations laid in his time, the political systems, social structures and cultural values of the medieval period have transformed over centuries, yet echoes remain in our laws, our language, our architecture and our imaginations? As you lie there, pleasantly relaxed, your breathing slow and steady, picture once more that medieval noble in their four-poster bed, curtains drawn against the night chill. Outside, the castle sleeps. Guards patrol the walls. In the great hall, servants curl up near the dying fire. Their world was both radically different from ours and recognisably human. They sought security, status, comfort and meaning just as we do. They loved their children, feared death, enjoyed beauty and worried about the future. Across the centuries that separate us, we can still glimpse our shared humanity. Your body feels so comfortable now, perfectly at ease. Your muscles are completely relaxed, tension melting away with each breath. That's it, just noticing those pleasant sensations as you shift slightly, finding that perfect spot where everything feels just right. Your breathing continues its gentle rhythm, lulling you deeper into relaxation as you imagine the stone walls of Heedingham standing sentinel against time, protecting memories of a world long gone but still somehow present in our collective imagination. The contrast between noble life and that of ordinary people in medieval times was stark. While peasants lived in simple timber and thatch cottages, nobles inhabited grand stone structures. While commoners ate coarse bread and pottage, nobles feasted on fresh meat and imported spices. While the poor worked the land with their hands, nobles administered estates and fought wars on horseback. Yet these differences shouldn't obscure the common humanity that connected people across the social divide. Everyone faced the uncertainties of medieval life, disease, war, famine, and the fragility of human existence in a world with limited medical knowledge and technology. Everyone sought meaning through religion, community, and family. Everyone experienced the basic human emotions of love, fear, joy, and grief. Your breathing continues its gentle rhythm, each breath a little deeper than the last. Your body feels wonderfully heavy, completely relaxed. That's it, just letting yourself drift along with the story. If we could somehow transport ourselves back to Heedingham Castle in its prime, what would strike us most? Perhaps the colours. Medieval buildings weren't the bare stone we see in ruins today, but were often plastered and painted in vibrant hues. Perhaps the sounds, the constant activity of a large household, from kitchen clatter to horses in the yard, servants calling to each other, dogs barking, music during feasts. Perhaps the smells, wood smoke, cooking food, unwashed bodies, leather and horses, all mingling in an aroma profile utterly different from our sanitised modern world. We would notice the rhythms of life governed by daylight and seasons rather than electric lights and central heating. Winter days meant early darkness and gathering around precious sources of warmth. Summer brought long evenings of extended activity and the relief of cooler night air after hot days in heavy clothing. We would observe how intimately life and death coexisted. Childbirth happened at home, often in the same bedchamber where people slept and sometimes died. Animals were slaughtered within sight of the kitchen where they would be prepared. The deceased might be laid out in the great hall before burial. There was less separation between these fundamental human experiences than we maintain today. Your eyelids feel heavier now, growing more difficult to keep open. That's fine. You can let them close whenever it feels right. Your breathing is slow and deep. Your body feels wonderfully heavy, pleasantly sinking into the mattress. That's it. Just letting yourself drift deeper into relaxation. Religion would be omnipresent in ways difficult for many modern people to imagine. Prayer punctuated the day. Religious images decorated walls and furnishings. Conversation was filled with references to God, saints, and biblical stories. Faith wasn't a separate compartment of life, but the lens through which all experience was interpreted and understood. We would notice the intense sociability of medieval life. Privacy was a rare luxury, even for nobles. People ate together, worked together, often slept in shared spaces. Solitude was unusual enough that it was associated primarily with religious contemplation. Human connection wasn't something you had to seek out. It was the constant, sometimes inescapable condition of existence. Time itself would feel different. Without mechanical clocks until the later medieval period, hours were flexible divisions of daylight rather than precise 60-minute segments. Seasons and religious festivals provided the primary structure to the year. A person might know their approximate age, but not necessarily their exact birth date. The pace of life followed natural rhythms rather than arbitrary schedules. Your body feels so comfortable now, so peaceful. Each breath comes easily, naturally. You might notice your thoughts beginning to drift, floating gently from one idea to the next. That's perfect. Just letting that happen, allowing yourself to drift along, getting more and more relaxed with each breath. The castle served multiple functions beyond being simply a home. It was a military base, an administrative centre, a court of law, a venue for entertainment, and a visual symbol of power. Its architecture reflected these diverse roles, with spaces designed for specific purposes. The Great Hall for public business and dining, the solar for private family activities, the chapel for religious observance, the kitchen and service areas for the practical support of noble life. These spaces weren't isolated from each other, but formed an integrated whole. Servants moved between them constantly, carrying food from kitchen to hall, transmitting messages, maintaining the countless systems that kept the castle functioning. The castle was essentially a small, self-contained village with its own internal economy and social structure. Beyond the castle walls stretched the manors and villages that provided its economic foundation. Peasants worked the fields, producing the food that supported the noble household. They owed various services and payments to their lord, creating the surplus that funded the military and administrative functions of nobility. This economic relationship was justified by the lord's theoretical protection and leadership, creating a system of mutual, though unequal, obligation. Your muscles feel completely relaxed now, every bit of tension melting away. Your breathing continues its slow, steady rhythm, in and out. So comfortable, so peaceful. You might notice that your thoughts are becoming softer, less defined. That's perfect. Just letting your mind grow quieter as your body sinks deeper into relaxation. Noble women played crucial roles in this medieval world, though historical records often focus more on their male relatives. The lady of the castle typically managed the household, supervising servants, overseeing food supplies and preparation, directing textile production, and maintaining the domestic aspects of castle life. This wasn't merely housekeeping, but the administration of a complex organisation that might include dozens or even hundreds of people. When their husbands were away, a frequent occurrence given nobles' military and political duties, women often took on even broader responsibilities. They might oversee estate management, handle legal matters, or even defend the castle in times of danger. Eleanor of Montfort, Countess of Leicester, commanded troops during the Barons' War in the 1260s. The Countess of March defended Wark Castle against Scottish forces in 1341. Women also preserved and transmitted family memory and identity. They commissioned books recording family histories, arranged for memorials to deceased relatives, and ensured that children understood their lineage and obligations. Through strategic marriages, they created alliances between families that shaped political landscapes for generations. Your breathing has become so deep and regular now. With each exhale, you sink a little deeper into relaxation. Your eyelids feel so heavy, almost impossible to open. That's good. Just letting them stay closed, letting your whole body remain still and peaceful, drifting deeper with each breath. Children experienced a very different childhood than we might expect in the modern world. They weren't separated from adult activities, but gradually integrated into them. A noble child would observe and then participate in the life of the household from an early age, learning by doing rather than through formal education alone. By modern standards, childhood ended early. Noble boys might be sent to other households as pages around age 7, beginning their training for knighthood. Girls might be betrothed in childhood and married in their early teens. Both genders were expected to take on adult responsibilities earlier than we would consider appropriate today. Yet evidence suggests that medieval parents loved their children deeply and were concerned for their welfare. The high childhood mortality rate, perhaps 30–50% of children died before age 10, made each surviving child precious. Letters between family members show affection and concern. While marriages were arranged for political and economic advantage, parents generally tried to find suitable, even compatible matches for their children. Your body feels wonderfully heavy now, pleasantly sinking into the mattress. Each breath draws you deeper into relaxation. Your mind is becoming quieter, thoughts drifting like clouds across a summer sky. So peaceful, so comfortable, just letting yourself float in this tranquil state as sleep draws nearer. Education varied widely among the medieval nobility. By the 12th century, literacy was becoming more common among nobles, though primarily in French rather than English initially. Sons of great nobles might study with private tutors, in cathedral schools, or eventually at universities, as these institutions developed. Daughters typically received education at home or in nunneries, focusing on religious instruction, household management, and the social graces needed to function in noble society. Books were precious possessions in an era before printing. A well-educated noble might own several dozen volumes, religious texts, histories, romances, practical manuals on topics like hunting or estate management. These would be handwritten by scribes, often beautifully illuminated with decorative initials and illustrations, and bound in leather-covered wooden boards. Such books were investments comparable to fine jewellery or plate in their value. The content of education reflected medieval values and priorities. Religion formed the foundation, with biblical knowledge considered essential. History focused on family lineages and the deeds of great leaders. Practical knowledge of law, estate management, and military affairs took precedence over abstract learning for most noble sons. For daughters, household management was paramount, along with textile skills and basic medical knowledge. Your breathing has found that perfect rhythm for deep relaxation. Each breath carries you closer to sleep. Your body feels so heavy now, as if gently pressing into the surface beneath you. Your mind grows quieter still, thoughts becoming distant, indistinct. That's perfect. Just letting yourself drift, floating on the edge of sleep. Medieval nobility was not a monolithic group, but included various ranks with different levels of wealth, power, and prestige. At the top stood the great magnates, dukes, marquesses, earls, or counts in continental Europe, and viscounts. These highest-ranking nobles often held multiple estates scattered across the kingdom, maintained large households, and wielded significant political influence at the royal court. Below them were the barons and knights, who might control more limited territories but still lived comfortably above the common people. A baron typically held enough land to support a substantial household and military retinue. Knights varied widely in wealth and status. Some were little more than mounted warriors serving greater lords, while others were substantial landowners in their own right. By the later medieval period, a new category emerged, the gentry. These were landowners who lived essentially noble lifestyles but lacked formal noble titles. They filled the gap between titled nobility and wealthy peasants or merchants, forming a kind of proto-middle class that would become increasingly important in subsequent centuries. The Daires family, as Earls of Oxford, stood among the highest ranks of English nobility for centuries. They held lands across multiple counties, maintained a substantial household, and played significant roles in national politics. Their status reflected not just their wealth and military power, but their ancient lineage tracing back to the Norman conquest. Your mind feels so peaceful now, thoughts gently fading as sleep draws nearer. Your breathing is slow and deep. Your body feels wonderfully heavy, completely relaxed. Your eyelids are too heavy to open. That's perfect. Just letting yourself drift in this tranquil state between wakefulness and sleep. The concept of honour was central to noble identity throughout the medieval period. For men, honour was tied to military prowess, keeping one's word and maintaining family reputation. For women, it connected primarily to chastity before marriage and fidelity afterward, though also to effective household management and producing heirs. In both cases, honour was a public quality. It existed in the perceptions of others as much as in individual conscience. Maintaining honour sometimes led to violence. Insults to personal or family honour might be addressed through judicial duels or less formal combat. Noble feuds could persist for generations, with each side avenging perceived slights in an ongoing cycle. The importance of honour helps explain why medieval nobles sometimes made choices that seem irrational from a purely pragmatic perspective. Reputation mattered as much as material advantage. This concern with honour and reputation helps explain the medieval noble obsession with lineage. A noble family's status depended not just on current wealth and power, but on the accumulated prestige of ancestors. Illustrious forebears conferred legitimacy on present claims to authority. Family histories were carefully preserved and sometimes embellished, tracing ancestry back to legendary heroes or even mythical figures. The Daires, like many great noble families, maintained elaborate genealogies demonstrating their ancient and honourable lineage. By the late medieval period, these would be visually represented in rolls showing coats of arms and family connections. Such documents weren't just decorative, they were practical tools for establishing inheritance rights and marriage alliances. Your breathing has become so slow and deep now. Each exhale carries you closer to sleep. Your body feels perfectly still, wonderfully heavy. Your mind grows quieter with each passing moment, thoughts becoming more distant, more dreamlike. That's right, just letting yourself drift towards sleep, feeling so comfortable, so peaceful. Medieval noble culture wasn't static but evolved significantly over the centuries. The early medieval period, roughly 500 to 1000 CE, saw relatively simple noble lifestyles with wooden halls rather than stone castles and limited material luxury. The high medieval period, 1300, brought the classic castle age with stone fortifications, elaborate feasts, tournaments and the flowering of chivalric culture. The late medieval period, 1300–1500, saw increasing sophistication in architecture, clothing, cuisine and the arts, with some nobles living in manor houses that prioritised comfort over defence. Throughout these changes, the core function of nobility remained consistent. They were the military elite who protected society, at least in theory, governed the countryside, and maintained order. Their privileged position was justified by these services, creating a system of mutual, though unequal obligation that defined feudal society. This system eventually gave way to more centralised states where royal power gradually supplanted that of individual nobles. The Tudor dynasty in England, established when Henry VII took the throne in 1485, worked systematically to curtail noble independence, restricting private armies and bringing more regions under direct royal control. Similar processes occurred across Europe, though at different rates and with various local characteristics. Your eyelids are so heavy now, impossible to open. Your breathing has found that perfect rhythm for sleep. Your body feels wonderfully comfortable, completely relaxed. Your mind grows quieter still, thoughts drifting away like leaves on a gentle stream. You're floating in that peaceful state just before sleep, letting yourself drift closer and closer to dreams. Today, we can still see the physical legacy of medieval nobility in castles, churches and manor houses across Europe. Heedingham Castle stands as a particularly well-preserved example of Norman architecture, its massive keep dominating the Essex landscape just as it did 9 centuries ago. Walking through such buildings, we can almost feel the presence of those who lived, worked, feasted and governed within their walls. The cultural legacy is equally significant. Our modern fascination with knights, castles and chivalry draws directly from medieval noble culture. Literature, films, television shows and games continue to reimagine and reinterpret this world. Even our language preserves traces of feudal relationships, with words like lord, lady, vassal and fealty originating in medieval noble contexts. Perhaps most importantly, the medieval nobility helped shape modern concepts of leadership, obligation and governance. While we've rejected the hereditary basis of authority, many principles developed in medieval legal and political thought underlie modern systems. The idea that leaders have responsibilities to those they govern, that power should be exercised within defined constraints, that society functions best when mutual obligations are recognised, all these have roots in medieval noble culture. Your breathing is so slow and deep now. Each breath carries you closer to sleep. Your body feels completely relaxed, deliciously heavy. Your mind is growing quieter and quieter, thoughts fading into peaceful stillness. Sleep is drawing nearer with each moment, wrapping around you like a warm, comfortable blanket. As we reach the end of our journey through medieval noble life, imagine once more that Norman keep at Heedingham. Picture its stone walls catching the last rays of sunset, its windows glowing with candlelight as darkness falls. Inside, the household prepares for night. Servants bank fires, secure doors, and prepare chambers for sleep. The lord and lady retire to their 4-poster bed, curtains drawn against draughts, perhaps a warming pan filled with hot coals placed between the sheets to take the chill off. Outside, guards patrol the battlements under a star-filled sky. In the village beyond the castle walls, peasant families settle to sleep in simpler surroundings, tired from a day's labour in the fields. The medieval world rests, each person in their appointed place, in a society that valued order, hierarchy, and tradition. This world is long gone, yet somehow still present in our imagination and cultural memory. Those stone walls that sheltered generations of Daires still stand. The fields they oversaw still produce crops, though worked by very different methods. The church they supported still offers prayers, though in a transformed tradition. There's a continuity beneath the obvious changes, a thread connecting their time to ours. Your eyelids are too heavy to open now. Your breathing has become the rhythm of near sleep, slow and deep. Your body feels weightless yet wonderfully heavy at the same time. Your mind is growing so quiet, thoughts fading into peaceful stillness. Sleep is just moments away, ready to carry you into gentle dreams. What would Aubrey de Vere, that Norman knight who rode with William the Conqueror, think of our world today? How would he react to electric lights, automobiles, airplanes, and all our modern technology? What would surprise him most? Our material abundance or our social arrangement so different from the hierarchy he knew? Would he recognize anything in our fast-paced, democratic, technological society? Perhaps he would recognize more than we might expect. The human constants remain: our need for security, community, meaning, and purpose, our capacity for both cruelty and kindness, our fascination with stories, our appreciation of beauty, our curiosity about the world. Beneath the vast differences in circumstances and beliefs, he might glimpse our shared humanity. As you lie there, drifting on the edge of sleep, imagine that connection across the centuries, the medieval noble in their curtained bed, and you in yours, separated by time but united by the universal experience of seeking rest after a day's activities. The same stars shine above. The same earth supports you both. The same human need for sleep and dreams binds you across the ages. Your breathing has become so slow and deep now, the natural rhythm of sleep. Your body feels perfectly still, completely relaxed. Your mind is quiet, peaceful, ready for dreams. Sleep is embracing you now, drawing you gently into its restful depths. That's right, just letting yourself drift off, feeling so comfortable, so secure. The medieval world with its castles and nobles, its feasts and tournaments, its prayers and battles gradually fades from your awareness. Like a tapestry viewed from increasing distance, the intricate details blend into a harmonious whole, a backdrop for your own peaceful journey into sleep. Your eyelids are completely still now. Your breathing has found the perfect rhythm of deep sleep. Your body feels wonderfully heavy, perfectly supported. Your mind is quiet, thoughts dissolved into tranquil emptiness. Sleep wraps around you like a protective cocoon, secure and peaceful. Let yourself drift now, deeper and deeper into restful sleep. The stories of medieval nobles will wait for another time. For now, there is only this perfect relaxation, this gentle descent into dreams. Sleep now, deeply and peacefully, until morning light returns and a new day begins. Sleep now, rest completely. Dream sweetly. Good night.